magnetic fields that trap charged radiation particles around the Earth. In the 1950s, scientists recorded incredibly high levels of radiation in these belts. According to some calculations, a person staying there even for a few hours would receive a lethal dose. And here arises a logical question. If the radiation is so dangerous, how did the Apollo astronauts cross this belt and return unharmed? The official answer? The spacecraft moved quickly, and the astronauts spent insufficient time in the danger zone to receive a dangerous dose of radiation. But independent studies show that even brief contact with such levels of radiation could have caused serious consequences. Could it be the technology? Did the technology of the 1960s provide perfect protection that we don't even have today? Or is there another reason why modern missions have been delaying the return to the moon for so long? And if this journey truly poses a threat, perhaps the real reason we are not returning to the moon is hidden even deeper, in the fact that there are already bases there that no one talks about. Lunar bases. A secret program? In the mid-20th century, the USA launched Project Horizon, a secret plan to build a military base on the moon. This project was never realized, but the very fact of its existence shows that the idea of using the moon for something more than research has always been in the plans. But there are even more astonishing rumors. Some ufologists claim that bases on the moon already exist, but they do not belong to the USA, Russia, or China. Images taken by satellites and telescopes periodically capture strange structures resembling dome-shaped buildings, as far back as the 1970s. One of the NASA employees claimed to have seen photographs that showed clear signs of artificial structures. But these images disappeared from the archives, and he soon left the agency. Or maybe NASA and other space agencies are not returning to the moon, not because they can't, but because they were forbidden? Perhaps the moon is already occupied, and someone simply doesn't want guests. But if this seems like mere fantasy, the next question will raise even more doubts. Then why spread the myth that the moon landing never happened at all? Myths about the moon conspiracy. There are many people who are convinced that the Americans never went to the moon, and all the video recordings were filmed in a studio. They present dozens of pieces of evidence: strange shadows, a waving flag in a vacuum, the absence of a crater from the module's landing. But there is another question. Could this conspiracy be beneficial to the authorities themselves? If they wanted people to believe in the landing, they would simply provide indisputable evidence, but instead they allow leaks and strange losses of records. Contradictory responses from officials might be the real aim of this conspiracy. To hide something else, maybe the landing did happen, but they discovered something on the moon that cannot be shown to the world. The myth of the fake landing is a smokescreen. While people argue about whether the landing happened or not, the real mysteries of the moon remain in the shadows. But what signals are scientists detecting coming from the moon? Perhaps this is the key to understanding what is really happening there. Mysterious signals from the moon. Since the mid-20th century, scientists have been detecting strange radio signals coming from the depths of space. But some of them were particularly interesting. They came from the moon. In the 1960s, long before the Apollo missions, American radio engineers detected repeating pulses coming from the surface of the moon. These signals were very specific, as if they were being transmitted by an intelligent system. But an official explanation never emerged. Either they were attributed to interference or they were simply ignored. In 1976, when the Soviet Union launched the automatic station Luna 24, the equipment recorded strange noises and some pulse transmissions in a range that was only used for communication on Earth. These anomalies were not explained, and the recordings themselves soon disappeared from access. Another unusual event occurred in our time. In the early 2000s, Chinese orbital devices detected signals coming from the far side of the moon. But what or who could be transmitting them? Were these remnants of some ancient mechanism? Or perhaps something that continues to operate to this day? These signals are another argument in favor of the theory that the moon is not as lifeless as it seems to us. And it's not surprising that while America hesitates with new lunar missions, China and Russia are actively moving in this direction. But why? Why do China and Russia want to go to the moon? While the USA has been postponing a return to the moon for decades, other countries are taking action. China has already sent several probes, and its Chang'e program is moving towards building a full-fledged base on the moon. Russia has also announced plans to land its cosmonauts in the coming years. But what attracts them so much? Perhaps the answer lies in rare minerals. Scientists suggest that the moon contains a vast amount of helium-3, a substance that could become fuel for future thermonuclear reactors. Another possible answer is ancient artifacts. Some researchers are convinced that since the mid-20th century, leading countries have known about the existence of unusual structures on the moon. China, for example, is closely studying the Aitken crater area at the South Pole, where strange anomalies are rumored to have been found. Or maybe it's something else, something that NASA already knows, which is why they are not in a hurry to return. In any case, the moon clearly holds secrets that are only revealed to a select few. And one of the most shocking theories suggests that it might not be what it seems at all. Is the moon an artificial object? It sounds like science fiction, but there are scientists and researchers who seriously consider the hypothesis that the moon, it is not a natural satellite but an artificially created object. Firstly, its orbit is too perfect. Unlike most satellites and planets which move in elliptical orbits, the moon rotates in an almost perfectly circular path. This is very strange from the perspective of celestial mechanics. Secondly, it coincidentally matches the size of the sun perfectly during an eclipse. Such a match is too unusual to be just a coincidence. But the most astonishing event occurred during the Apollo 12 mission, when astronauts dropped an empty module onto the moon's surface. The impact caused a seismic effect, making the moon ring like a hollow metallic sphere. This phenomenon has no logical explanation. Could it be that the moon was created long ago, possibly by someone or something? Or is it the result of processes we do not yet understand? In any case, there are too many oddities. And the official explanations do not always sound convincing. And if you add to this the lunar anomalies that cannot be explained. Over decades of observing the moon, astronomers have repeatedly recorded strange phenomena that cannot be explained. One of the most mysterious phenomena is lunar flashes. From time to time, telescopes capture mysterious lights on the moon's surface that appear and disappear without any apparent reason. They can last for seconds or even minutes and sometimes change color. Another fact, movement of objects. Some scientists claim that traces of movement of certain objects are visible on the moon. They have been recorded both in old photographs and in modern satellite images. Photos. Some craters also raise questions. For example, the Aristarchus crater. Its glow sometimes changes, and inside, strange formations have been recorded that look as if someone has processed them. All these oddities leave only one question. What is really happening on the moon? Could it be that the USA discovered something important, and that's why they no longer go there? It's time to reveal the final truth. So why doesn't America fly to the moon anymore? We have examined many facts, mysteries, and theories. Officially, the mission stopped due to high costs and a shift in priorities. But if you look deeper, it seems that the real reason is much more complex. Firstly, there is a possibility that the technologies used in the 60s have been lost or were not reliable enough. NASA itself admitted that the original blueprints for the rockets and landing modules were destroyed, and today creating a similar system from scratch is no easy task. Secondly, the moon turned out to be far less safe than initially thought. Radiation belts, extreme temperatures, the impact of micrometeorites. Perhaps the actual risk was higher than previously believed. But there is a third version, less obvious but far more intriguing. What if the moon no longer belongs solely to humanity? What if something was found there that is not commonly spoken about? Mysterious signals, anomalous phenomena, strange statements from astronauts. All of this forms a picture in which the moon is not at all a barren and lifeless place. So why doesn't America fly to the moon anymore? Maybe it realized that returning there is simply not an option. Or is it preparing to return, but not as openly as before? The answer to this question remains open, and perhaps we will only find out when someone dares to step on the moon's surface again. But will it be humanity? Or someone else? Is the organization of false rescue routes, where migrants are convinced that help awaits them ahead. But in reality, it's bandits extorting ransom from their families. With each passing year, the influence of cartels on migration only grows. The police and army in Mexico are either powerless or corrupt. And those who have already fallen into this deadly system can only try to survive and find a way forward. But if you get into a car accident in America and don't know what to do next, where to seek help? Where to find a competent lawyer? How to get compensation if you don't have insurance? The company Car Accident America has helped obtain $21 million in compensations for its clients. Here, they will definitely answer all your questions. Link in the description. Confessions of Migrants. Every person crossing the border carries within them a whole world of stories, full of pain, fear, and hope. They are not just chasing the American dream. Often they are driven by horrors from which there is no other escape. Some migrants are fleeing from drug cartels that have killed their relatives or demand exorbitant sums for protection. Others flee from war-torn economies, where work is paid in pennies and life is worth nothing. The third group simply wants to give their children a chance to grow up in safety, away from streets where blood is shed every day. Migrants from Central America recount how they walk hundreds of miles on foot, crossing dangerous territories where they can be robbed, raped, or killed. Some lose loved ones along the way. Some die from the heat in the desert, some drown in the river, and some simply disappear, becoming victims of criminal gangs. What is especially frightening is that even upon reaching the USA, many find themselves in captivity. Some are exploited in illegal jobs for a pittance, while others are sent to deportation camps where conditions are worse than in prisons. And if a migrant is lucky enough to cross the border, it still doesn't mean they are safe. Without documents, without housing, and without protection, they become easy prey for scammers, employers, exploiters, and even the police. But the worst awaits those who are kidnapped by criminals during their journey. Their families are forced to pay exorbitant amounts for their release, and if there is no money, the person disappears forever. Kidnapping and ransoms. For criminal groups, migrants are not just people, but a source of enormous profit. Cartels, gangs, and even corrupt police have built an entire industry around this. Kidnapping has become commonplace, and ransom amounts sometimes reach tens of thousands of dollars. The methods are brutal. The kidnapped are beaten, locked in filthy barracks, and threatened with death if their families do not pay. Women and children are used for human trafficking, while men are forced to work for the cartels, with threats to kill their relatives if they refuse. Sometimes migrants are kidnapped right at the border. Bandits disguised as border guards stop groups of people, promising them safety, and then take them away to an unknown location. And even if they manage to escape, most are simply too afraid to report to the police, as no one will offer them protection. Some groups of migrants, aware of this threat, try to travel together in large columns, hoping that this way they might be able to protect themselves, but against organized crime, they stand no chance. The only way to save themselves is to avoid being kidnapped, and for that, they need to cross the border as quickly as possible. Children at the border. One of the most terrifying aspects of the migration crisis is the fate of the children. Every year, tens of thousands of minors cross the US border without their parents. Some lose their families along the way, some are sent ahead in the hope that they will be allowed into the country faster, and some are kidnapped right during the crossing. As a result, thousands of children end up in detention centers, where they live in overcrowded tents or cages, awaiting the decision of their fate. These images have spread around the world. Little boys and girls sitting on the cold floor, wrapped in thermal blankets, with tearful eyes, not understanding what will happen to them next. But even those who cross the border with their parents do not always stay with them. American authorities have repeatedly implemented a policy of family separation. Parents are deported and children are left in special centers. Many never find each other. Again, the fate of these children is one of the most controversial topics in American politics. Some believe they need to be protected and given a chance for a better life. Others think they are part of the illegal immigration problem and should be sent back. But regardless of political views, the fact remains. The US border has turned into a place where children's futures are shattered every day. Humanitarian crisis. The US-Mexico border has long been not only a place of migration, but also the epicenter of a humanitarian crisis, the scale of which only grows each year. Hundreds of thousands of migrants stuck at the border live in appalling conditions without food, water, or medical assistance. They huddle in makeshift tents or overcrowded camps, where unsanitary conditions and diseases kill faster than the desert heat or ruthless cartels. Against this backdrop, hundreds of humanitarian organizations, volunteer groups, and religious communities are trying to help the refugees in any way they can. Along the border, shelters operate where food and medicine are distributed, first aid is provided, and temporary shelter is offered. In some US cities, special reception centers for migrants are opening, where they are provided with basic living conditions while they await the processing of their asylum applications. One of the most dangerous and difficult missions is the search and rescue of migrants in the Sonoran Desert and along the Rio Grande River. Every year, thousands of people die before reaching the border, and volunteers armed only with water bottles and medical kits scour the area in hopes of finding survivors. They leave water supplies at strategic points, mark maps, and report found bodies to the authorities. But it's not enough. The number of deaths is increasing. However, not everyone views humanitarian aid positively. Some American politicians and even law enforcement agencies believe that supporting migrants only encourages illegal migration. volunteers are arrested for aiding illegal entry. Aid centers are shut down under pressure from local authorities, and people distributing water in the desert are accused of breaking the law. The situation is even worse on the Mexican side of the border. There, migrant camps are regularly attacked by criminal groups. They kidnap people for ransom, recruit them into their ranks, or simply kill them to instill fear. There is no medical assistance in these camps, children die from hunger, and women are subjected to violence. Despite all this, the struggle continues. Every day, new volunteers, lawyers, doctors, and ordinary compassionate people come to help to those who are stuck at this threshold between life and death. But can they change the situation when the system itself breaks people's lives, turning them into pawns in a big political game? Soldiers at the border. In response to the endless flow of migrants, the authorities in the state of Texas have begun radical measures. Whereas previously border control was the task of federal agencies, now Texas is acting independently. Armed soldiers, armored vehicles, and even improvised fortifications have appeared at the border. The governor of Texas declared a state of emergency and began deploying the National Guard. Thousands of military personnel are patrolling the border, setting up barbed wire barriers and creating camps for detained migrants. In some areas, trenches have been dug and additional checkpoints have been set up. This is no longer just patrolling, it's a full-scale military operation within the country. One of the most controversial decisions is the construction of makeshift barriers on the Rio Grande River. Huge buoys with spikes, nets, and even underwater barriers have been installed to prevent migrants from crossing the border by swimming. These structures have already led to deaths. People get stuck, entangled in the nets, and drown. Texas's harsh measures have resonated across the country. Some believe that the state is simply protecting itself from the migration crisis, while others see it as a violation of human rights. Tensions between the federal authorities and Texas are growing. Washington demands the removal of military barriers, but the state authorities refuse to comply. As a result, the border is turning into a zone of military confrontation, where clashes occur not only between migrants and patrols, but also between different levels of U.S. government. However, even the strictest border reinforcement does not solve the main issues. A huge number of people continue to try to enter the country, hoping for salvation. But do they have a chance to stay in the U.S. legally? A question that torments every migrant trying to cross this deadly threshold. Chance or illusion? Migrants crossing the border hope for asylum, an official opportunity to stay in the U.S. legally. But the reality is much more complicated. The process of obtaining asylum in America is a bureaucratic labyrinth in which thousands of people get lost. By law, anyone on U.S. soil can apply for protection if they have justified reasons. Persecution in their homeland, threat to life, violence, or terror. But in practice, it's not that simple. First of all, the migrant must surrender to the authorities and officially register. Then begins the long process of interview checks, akuro, document collection, and court hearings. And while the proceedings are ongoing, a person can remain in limbo for years. Without citizenship, without documents, without work. The situation is even worse for those who could not prove their story. Judges can deny asylum if they consider the evidence insufficient, and then the migrant is deported. Some migrants get the chance to stay, but with limited rights they cannot work, have no access to social protection, and live in fear of being expelled at any moment. The situation is especially difficult for children who cross the border alone. In theory, they are supposed to be protected, but in reality many of them find themselves in a legal vacuum. Without guardians, without protection, without any idea of what to do next. Human rights advocates have long criticized the asylum system in the USA, but there are almost no changes. Migrants continue to hope that they will be given a chance for a new life, but reality shows that for most it is merely an illusion. And what awaits those who have been denied asylum? They are sent back to the very dangerous environment from which they fled. What awaits the exiled? For most migrants, deportation is a terrifying sentence. They risked everything, crossed the desert, endured violence and death nearby, but ultimately found themselves on a plane taking them back to the country they fled from. American authorities deport tens of thousands of people every year. By planes, buses, in shackles, and without a single chance for another attempt. Sometimes they are simply dumped at the border without money, documents, or contact with their family. Many end up in cities where criminal gangs prey on the deported, knowing that they have no protection. The situation is even worse for those who owe cartels or coyotes for crossing the border. The return becomes a death sentence. If they cannot pay, they are simply killed. Some don't even manage to leave the airport before falling into the hands of bandits. There are also those who do not give up. Deported migrants often make a second, third, fourth attempt to cross the border, each time risking their lives. Some go through the hell of the desert again and again until they run out of strength. The American deportation system doesn't just send people back, it traps them in a cycle of hopelessness where there is almost no chance of escape. The only way out for many is to seek new ways to enter or to remain in the shadows, hoping that one day they will manage to start a new life. But why do they make such sacrifices in the first place? What makes them risk their lives again and again for the chance to get to the United States? What drives people? The root of the migration crisis is not just the desire for a better life. It's the economy, the income disparity, and the complete lack of prospects in their homeland. Most migrants are people from the poorest countries in Latin America. In their hometowns, there are no jobs, wages are meager, and inflation destroys any savings. In some countries, even basic goods cost more than the average salary. And healthcare and education are luxuries. Against this backdrop, the USA seems like the promised land. Wages in America, even for the lowest paid jobs, are dozens of times higher than in the migrants' countries. Construction workers, cleaners, drivers, waiters, all of them can earn more than professional specialists in their home countries. But that's not all. Poverty drives people to migrate. Many flee from corruption, violence, cartels, and complete lawlessness in their countries. The police work for the bandits, courts sell decisions, and human life is worth nothing. Economy, crime, and corruption are the three main forces driving people into a deadly journey. But can the migration crisis be solved if it is fueled by the very system on which this world is built? The border, hopes and despair, is there a way out? The border between the USA and Mexico has long ceased to be just a dividing line between two countries. This is a place where millions of people face a harsh reality, where destinies are broken and dreams of a better life are shattered by a ruthless system. Every year, thousands of migrants attempt to cross the border, hoping for salvation, and every year, many of them disappear, perish, or find themselves trapped in a bureaucratic hell. The issue of migration is one of the most complex and controversial in global politics. Some believe that borders should be open to give people a chance for a safe life. Others are convinced that the influx of migrants threatens the economy and security of the USA. Between these positions lies reality. Millions of people who are willing to do anything to survive, even if it means risking death. But is it possible to find a compromise? Is it possible to stop illegal migration without turning the border into a military zone? Or conversely, is it possible to help people without putting the country at risk of destabilization? أغلقت الولايات المتحدة قناة بنما بالكامل. بعد هذا الحدث، الرئيس الأمريكي دونالد ترامب مصمم على استعادة السيطرة على هذا المرفق الحيوي. لماذا تعتبر قناة بنما التي تربط بين المحيط الهادئ والمحيط الأطلسي محط اهتمام متزايد من قبل القوى العالمية الكبرى؟ وكذلك كيف تؤثر الكوارث الطبيعية في قناة بنما على العلاقات الاقتصادية بين الدول المختلفة؟ نخبركم عن كل هذا اليوم في فيديو جديد لي. لنبدأ. قناة بنما هي قناة مائية صناعية مع نظام من الأقفال تربط بين المحيط الهادئ والمحيط الأطلسي، وهي مملوكة. بينما تم تنفيذ بنائها وفقا لمشروع الولايات المتحدة. تم افتتاح القناة في أغسطس عام 1914. أهمية القناة تقارن بقناة السويس، حيث أن كلاهما يعدان ممرات مائية رئيسية تسهم في التجارة الدولية. تقع القناة عبر البرزخ اللي يحمل نفس الاسم واللي يمثل جزءا ضيقا من أمريكا الوسطى، يمتد من مدينة كولون على الساحل الأطلسي إلى عاصمة البلاد مدينة بنما الواقعة على الساحل الهادئ. يبلغ طول قناة بنما ميل، منها ميل على اليابسة. في المتوسط تستغرق السفن من 8 إلى 10 ساعات لعبور القناة، بس مع وقت الانتظار يمكن أن تستغرق هذه العملية حتى 25 ساعة. القدرة الاستيعابية القصوى للقناة في اليوم هي 36 سفينة، على الرغم من أن هذا العدد يعتمد على عدة عوامل، بما في ذلك الظروف الجوية اللي يمكن أن تؤثر على مستوى المياه. في الفترة من 1 أكتوبر 2023 إلى 30 سبتمبر 2024 عبرت القناة 1140 سفينة، وهو ما يقل بنسبة 20 كمي مقارنة بالفترة المماثلة من عام 2022-2023 عندما بلغ عدد السفن 14 وكان السبب الرئيسي للتقليص هو انخفاض مستوى المياه بسبب الجفاف. بالإضافة إلى القناة تمر بجانبها خط سكة حديد بطول أميال وطريق سريع، مما يسهل بشكل إضافي نقل البضائع والأشخاص عبر هذا المسار المهم. في ضوء الأخبار الأخيرة تكتسب أهمية قناة بنما أبعاداً استراتيجية. ماذا حدث؟ تصريح رئيس الولايات المتحدة 20 فبراير 2022. أعلن رئيس الولايات المتحدة دونالد ترامب خلال اجتماع مع الحكام والجمهوريين أن الولايات المتحدة يجب أن تستعيد قناة بنما، وأشار إلى أن الصين استولت عليه فعليا، مشددا على أهمية القناة كواحدة من الطرق النقلية الرئيسية ذات الأهمية العالمية والتي تم بناؤها بأيدي الأمريكيين. في نهاية ديسمبر 2024 توجه ترامب إلى حكومة بنما بمطلب خفض ما يعتبره رسوما مبالغا فيها لاستخدام القناة، محذرا من أنه في حال عدم الاستجابة قد تصر الولايات المتحدة على استعادة القناة تحت سيطرتها. وبدأ تكلفة مرور سفينة من نوع نيو باناما بسعة تزيد عن 10,000 حاوية مكافئة، بما في ذلك ناقلات النفط الكبيرة تصل إلى 300,000 دولار. أعرب ترامب عن قلقه من احتمال سيطرة الصين على قناة بنيما واحتمال وجود عسكري صيني على أراضيها، رغم أن بنيما نفت هذه الاتهامات. تتم إدارة الموانئ في كلا طرفي القناة من قبل شركة هاتشسون بورتس PPC، وهي شركة تابعة لمجموعة CK هاتشسون هولدينغز في هونغ كونغ، واللي عندها علاقات تجارية مع شركة صناعة الطيران الصينية، وهي واحدة من أبرز الشركات الصينية المصنعة للمعدات الدفاعية. أكد الرئيس الأمريكي أن قناة بنما مهمة للغاية للبلاد من الناحيتين الاقتصادية والعسكرية. الجفاف وعواقبه. انخفض مستوى المياه في قناة بنما بسبب انخفاض مستوى بحيرة غاتون الذي حدث نتيجة للجفاف الطويل اللي بدأ في أكتوبر 2023. أصبحت هذه الظاهرة واحدة من أخطر حالات الجفاف في العقود السبعة الماضية. كما كان لظاهرة النينيو تأثير كبير على الوضع، ظاهرة طبيعية مرتبطة بارتفاع درجة حرارة المياه في المنطقة الاستوائية من المحيط الهادئ، مما زاد من تغير المناخ في هذه المنطقة. يهدد انخفاض مستوى المياه في قناة بنما التجارة العالمية، نظرا لأن البضائع اللي تمر عبرها سنويا تقدر ب 170 مليار دولار. مستوى المياه أقل من المعدل الطبيعي بمقدار قد ما ليش أصبحت القيود على مرور السفن إجراءات ضرورية لمنع تدهور الوضع بشكل أكبر. قامت السلطات البنمية بتقليل عدد السفن التي تمر عبر القناة من 36 إلى 24 سفينة يوميا، مما أثر بشكل لا مفر منه على جداول التسليم، وزاد بشكل كبير من وقت الانتظار للسفن الملاحية. في يوليو 2024 عبرت القناة 13 ناقلة غاز فقط، وهو أقل من النصف مقارنة بنفس الشهر في عام 2023. انعكست هذه الحالة أيضا على شحنات البضائع الجافة. انخفض عدد السفن التي تنقل الحبوب والسلع السائبة الأخرى بنسبة 35%، بإجمالي 129 وحدة. يعبر الشاحنون عن خيبة أملهم من أن السلطات البنمية لا تتخذ إجراءات سريعة لحل مشكلة انخفاض مستوى المياه. كتب جيريمي نيكسون المدير العام لشركة النقل البحري اليابانية Ocean Network Express Holdings في رسالة إلى رئيس بنما: لا يتم تنفيذ أي مشاريع بنية تحتية كبيرة في بنما لزيادة احتياطيات المياه العذبة، ودعا سلطات البلاد وإدارة القناة إلى اتخاذ إجراءات عاجلة. قناة بنما مشت على مستوى سطح البحر مثل قناة السويس، وتملأ بالمياه العذبة من البحيرات الاصطناعية، مما يجعلها عرضة للجفاف. في الظروف العادية يمر عبرها ما يقرب من 300 من حجم التجارة البحرية العالمية، و46 من الحاويات المتجهة من شمال شرق آسيا إلى الساحل الشرقي للولايات المتحدة. القند هي أكبر مصدر دخل لبنما، حيث جلبت لخزينة الدولة في عام 2022 4 مليارات و300 مليون دولار. المرور عبر قناة بنما خاصة في فترة الجفاف يتطلب مهارات خاصة، ولكنه إذا تعرضت لحادث سير في أمريكا ولا تعرف ماذا تفعل بعد ذلك أو إلى أين تتوجه للحصول على المساعدة، أين تجد محاميا مؤهلا؟ كيف تؤثر على تعويض إذا لم يكن عندك تأمين؟ شركة حوادث أمريكا ساعدت في الحصول على تعويضات بقيمة 21 مليون. لعملائها هنا حيجيبون بالتأكيد على جميع الأسئلة اللي تهمك. الرابط في الوصف. البحث عن حل للمشكلة. بسبب القيود المفروضة على قناة بنما، بدأت شركات الشحن في البحث عن طرق بديلة. يواجه الشاحنون ضرورة دفع ملايين الدولارات لتسريع عملية مرور السفن عبر القناة، أو يضطرون لاختيار طرق أطول وأكثر تكلفة حول إفريقيا أو أمريكا الجنوبية. هذا يجبر إدارة القناة على النظر في خيارات للتخفيف من آثار الكوارث الطبيعية. قال إريك كوردوبا: علينا اتخاذ إجراءات كقناة وكدولة لأن الوضع غير مقبول. مدير إدارة القناة في مقابلة مع الوكالة: أحد الخيارات لحل المشكلة هو بناء نفق بطول 5 أميال عبر الجبل، تزويد بحيرة غاتون بالمياه العذبة وهي الخزان الرئيسي للقناة. وفقا لكوردوبا ستبلغ تكلفة المشروع حوالي 2 مليار دولار، سيستغرق تنفيذه ما لا يقل عن 6 سنوات. الاقتراح الآخر هو استخدام تقنية استمطار السحب، حيث يتم إدخال جزيئات كبيرة من الملح في السحب لتعزيز التكثيف وزيادة هطول الأمطار. ومع ذلك فإن تنفيذ كلا الخيارين سيستغرق وقتا طويلا ولا تضمن قابليتهما للتنفيذ وفقا للخبراء، على الرغم من أن الوضع قد تحسن بحلول منتصف عام 2024 عندما انتهى موسم الجفاف، إلا أن هناك مخاوف من أن التغيرات المناخية العالمية قد تؤدي إلى تفاقم مشكلة الجفاف، وأن مثل هذه الظواهر قد تتكرر بتواتر متزايد. الأهمية الاقتصادية لقناة بنما: تقلل قناة بنما بشكل كبير من الحاجة إلى الإبحار حول رأس هورن اللي يقع في جنوب أمريكا الجنوبية، ورأس الرجاء الصالح اللي يقع في جنوب إفريقيا، مما يسمح بتقليل وقت نقل البضائع وتوفير الوقود. منذ بنائه تقلصت المسافة بين الساحل الشرقي والغربي للولايات المتحدة من 13951 ميلا إلى 5900 ميل. انخفض وقت الرحلة من آسيا إلى المحيط الأطلسي من 39 إلى 26 يوما. من بين الدول الرائدة اللي تمر بضائعها عبر القناة توجد الولايات المتحدة اللي تمثل جميع البضائع، وكذلك الصين واليابان. أكبر فئات البضائع اللي يتم نقلها عبر القناة هي النفط والمنتجات النفطية والبضائع المعبأة في حاويات. تعتبر الموانئ على الساحل الشرقي للولايات المتحدة وفي آسيا الوجهات الرئيسية. يمر عبر القناة حوالي من التجارة البحرية العالمية سنويا، كما أنها توفر 40% من جميع شحنات الحاويات في الولايات المتحدة. تم التأكيد على الأهمية الاستراتيجية للقناة خلال سنوات الحرب العالمية الثانية، وكذلك خلال الحرب الكورية من 1950 إلى 1952، وحرب فيتنام من 1955 إلى 1975. بعد نقل القناة إلى بنما، لا تزال الولايات المتحدة تحتفظ بحق عبور السفن العسكرية. مع ذلك كانت بتجلبت السنوات الأخيرة هنا تحديات كبيرة للقناة، خاصة الجفاف المستمر اللي بيأثر على عملها. على الرغم من أن القناة لا تزال تعتبر شريانا حيويا للتجارة العالمية، فإن حالتها الحالية تدفع شركات الشحن إلى إعادة النظر في مساراتها، مما قد يؤثر على الاقتصاد على المدى الطويل. ما هي المخاطر التي قد تنجم عن إغلاق قناة بنما؟ مستوى المياه المنخفض يهدد إمدادات الطاقة والمواد الغذائية والسلع الاستهلاكية، حيث تضطر شركات النقل إلى تجاوز مسافات إضافية كبيرة. تعاني موانئ بنما ونيكاراغوا والإكوادور وبيروي والسلفادور وجامايكا من تأخيرات في الإمدادات تصل إلى 25% يتبع تجارتهم البحرية. ومع ذلك فإن آثار الجفاف في أمريكا الوسطى لا تشعر بها فقط في هذه البلدان، بل أيضا في آسيا وأوروبا وأمريكا الشمالية. المشكلة الرئيسية تكمن في أن الوضع قد يؤدي إلى أن تجبر أكبر ناقلات النفط عن التخلي عن استخدام قناة بنما كأقصر طريق من المحيط الأطلسي إلى المحيط الهادئ، وبدلا من ذلك تمديد مساراتها لآلاف الأميال متجاوزة أفريقيا أو أمريكا الجنوبية أمانتي. وفقا للعلماء، إن لم يستعد مستوى المياه في القناة فإن ذلك سيزيد من مشكلة قدرتها الاستيعابية. في أسوأ الحالات أديك يتم إغلاقه ببساطة. هذه الصعوبات أدت بالفعل إلى زيادة الفجوة بين أسعار الغاز الطبيعي المسال في آسيا وأوروبا ثم في الولايات المتحدة. ستضطر أمريكا لأخذ التكاليف الإضافية بالحسبان مع المشترين في آسيا وأوروبا. بالإضافة إلى ذلك قد تتعقد الوضعية إذا قام الحوثيون اليمنيون بإغلاق قناة السويس ومضيقين نفطيين رئيسيين هما مضيق هرمز وباب المندب. سيؤدي ذلك إلى ارتفاع حاد في أسعار النفط، وقد يتسبب في أزمة طاقة أعمق بكثير من تلك التي حدثت في السبعينيات. قد يؤدي وقف تصدير النفط من الدول الكبرى إلى زيادة تكلفة الوقود وتعزيز التضخم، مما يهدد بدوره الاستقرار المالي في الولايات المتحدة واليابان وأوروبا. المكسيك ونيكاراغوا تفركان أيديهما. يمكن لهذين الإقليمين الاستفادة من الفرص اللي تفتح أمامهما. تعمل المكسيك بنشاط على تطوير ممرها الخاص للنقل بين المحيطات، والذي سيربط بين المحيط الهادئ والمحيط الأطلسي. يمكن أنا بيزاي لهذا المشروع الليل دي يبلغ طوله 166 ميلا ويمر عبر مضيق تيهوان تيبك، منافسا مباشرا لقناة بنما. تم بالفعل استثمار 2 مليار و58 مليون دولار في تنفيذ المشروع، ومن المتوقع أن يؤثر ذلك بشكل كبير على اقتصاد المكسيك. من المتوقع أن يمر عبر الممر 300 ألف حاوية سنويا بحلول عام 2022، وبحلول عام 2033 قد يصل هذا الرقم إلى 1,400,000. ممكن أن يضخ مشروع في نيكاراغوا منافسا آخر لقناة بنما. في عام 2012 تم توقيع اتفاقية بين حكومة مانويل أرتيغا والصين وروسيا لبناء قناة بديلة تربط المحيط الهادئ بالمحيط الأطلسي. كان من المفترض أن تتولى الصين عملية البناء، بينما تتولى روسيا توفير الأمن. لمع ذلك تم تعليق المشروع في عام 2017 بسبب الاحتجاجات من قبل البيئيين والشعوب الأصلية المحلية. الآن جذب المشروع الانتباه مرة أخرى، وقد وقع أرتيغا بالفعل مرسوما يسمح بإنشاء قواعد عسكرية روسية وصواريخ كروز على أراضي نيكاراغوا لأغراض إنسانية. يتشارك الخبراء في العديد من الآراء. يعتقد البعض أن هذا بالأحرى استفزاز جيوسياسي لصرف انتباه الولايات المتحدة، بينما يعتقد آخرون أن المشروع سيستأنف قريبا، لأنه يمكن أن يساعد نيكاراغوا بشكل كبير في حل المشاكل الاقتصادية. ديفيزو القناة ملكا لبنما. حتى عام 1970 كان قناة بنما تحت السيطرة الكاملة للولايات المتحدة، ومن عام 1970 إلى 1989 كانت إدارته تتم من قبل لجنة مشتركة بين بنما والولايات المتحدة. حصلت أمريكا على حق بناء وتشغيل القناة في عام 1903 بموجب معاهدة هاي بونوفاريا التي وقعها وزير الخارجية الأمريكي جون هاي وسفير بينما فيليب جان بونوفاريا. كانت أمريكا تخطط لإبرام اتفاقية مع كولومبيا التي كانت بينما جزءا منها، ولكن مجلس الشيوخ الكولومبي رفض هذا المشروع. ردا على ذلك دعمت أمريكا انفصال بنما الذي حدث في نوفمبر من نفس العام 1903، ووقعت معاهدة مع الحكومة البنمية. بموجب المعاهدة حصلت بنما على تعويض قدر 10 ملايين دولار. ومنذ عام 1913 كانت الولايات المتحدة تدفع إيجارا سنويا، والذي زاد خلال أكثر من 40 عاما من 250 ألف دولار إلى 1,930 ألف دولار. ومع ذلك بنظرا أنه بونوفاريلا تصرف دون موافقة رسمية من السلطات البنمية وما كون يقيم هناك لفترة طويلة. في بنما أصبحت الأسئلة حول شرعية المعاهدة ذات أهمية بعد افتتاح القناة في عام 1914. استمر سيطرة الولايات المتحدة على منطقة القناة في إثارة الاستياء في بنما. كانت هذه المنطقة تشمل القناة نفسها والمنطقة المجاورة بعرض حوالي 5 أميال من كل جانب باستثناء مدينتي بينوما وكولون. ظل موضوع تأميم القناة على جدول الأعمال. في عام 1960 أدى الصدام بين المواطنين الأمريكيين والبنميين الناجم عن الخلاف حول حق رفع العلم البنمي في منطقة القناة إلى قطع مؤقت للعلاقات الدبلوماسية، إبرام معاهدة أمريكية بنمية. مدركا للاستياء المتزايد والتهديد بتصاعد المشاعر المعادية لأمريكا، بدأ واشنطن مفاوضات مع بنما لمراجعة وضع القناة. نتيجة لذلك في سبتمبر 1970 وقع رئيس بنما عمر ترخيص والرئيس الأمريكي جيمي كارتر على اتفاقيتين هامتين: اتفاقية الحياد الدائم لاستغلال قناة بنما، والتي بموجبها فقدت الولايات المتحدة الحق في وضع المنشآت العسكرية في منطقة القناة، لكنها احتفظت بحق عبور السفن العسكرية، واتفاقية قناة بنما التي نصت على إنهاء وجود منطقة القناة اعتبارا من 1 أكتوبر عام 1970 ونقل السيطرة الكاملة على القناة إلى بنما في 31 ديسمبر 1999. بعد الوفاة المأساوية لتوريخوس في عام 1981 تدهورت العلاقات بين الولايات المتحدة وبنما مرة أخرى. في ديسمبر 1989 قام الرئيس جورج بوش الأب بتفويض التدخل العسكري في بنما بهدف الإطاحة بقائدها مانويل نورييغا. على الرغم من ذلك استقرت العلاقات بين البلدين فيما بعد، ومنذ عام 1999 انتقل إدارة قناة بنما إلى أيدي بنما من خلال منظمة حكومية تم إنشاؤها خصيصا، وهي إدارة قناة بنما. القيود المفروضة على قناة بنما تؤثر بشكل كبير على التجارة العالمية، مما يخلق صعوبات في الأنظمة اللوجستية التقليدية. تصبح المهمة الأساسية هي تطوير البنية التحتية والتقنيات القادرة على تقليل آثار مثل هذه الكوارث الطبيعية. قناة بنما كونها جزءا لا يتجزأ من التجارة العالمية تتطلب دعما وتحديثا مستمرين لتتمكن من التعامل بنجاح مع التحديات التي يجلبها تغير المناخ. الولايات المتحدة مستعدة لمواجهة هذه التحديات. كيف سيهدف ذلك؟ مش يضره الزمن إلى The U.S. Air Force unveiled the new B-21 bomber. Raider. Recently, a significant event took place in the United States of America. For the first time in the last 30 years, a new strategic bomber was presented to the public. This is the B-21 Raider, which is intended to become a key element in the U.S. Air Force's arsenal. Today, I will tell you everything about the new bomber that I managed to gather. Let's go! Presentation of the B-21 Raider. In December 2022, in the city of Palmdale, California, the long-awaited unveiling of the prototype of the newest strategic bomber, the B-21, took place. It is expected that in the coming years, the Pentagon will acquire at least 100 of these aircraft, each costing the U.S. military about $700 million. Developers are already calling this machine the world's first representative of the sixth generation of jet combat aircraft, equipped with stealth technologies. According to the creators, the B-21 is built using stealth technologies, making it a serious threat to any potential adversary. This aircraft is capable of covertly covering vast distances, bypassing air defense systems, striking targets, and returning to base with minimal risk of interception. It is particularly noteworthy that the B-21 will become the second stealth aircraft in the U.S. strategic aviation arsenal. The first such aircraft, the B-2 Spirit, seems to be nearing the end of its service life as a carrier of nuclear and non-nuclear weapons, and it may soon retire to a museum. Test flights of the new bomber, designed in a flying wing configuration using stealth technology, were conducted in November 2023 at the classified Plant 42 under the jurisdiction of the U.S. Air Force. It is reported that witnesses spotted the unusual aircraft around 7 a.m. The U.S. Air Force did not announce the first test flight of the B-21 in advance. However, a group of aviation enthusiasts and photography lovers still managed to find out about it and arrive at the site on time. Milestones in development and the history of creation. Let's briefly delve into the history of strategic aviation and the creation of the new American bomber in particular. Possessing strategic bombers can be considered one of the indicators of a state's global ambitions. Today, such machines are possessed by the United States and Russia as the successor of the USSR. Meanwhile, China is actively striving to catch up, making colossal efforts to create its own models. The question of the advisability of having strategic bombers is regularly raised by experts. On one hand, intercontinental ballistic missiles have significantly accelerated the process of delivering nuclear warheads, but on the other, the rapid development of air defense systems, such as anti-aircraft missile complexes, has called into question the effectiveness of traditional aircraft. However, the situation changed with the advent of strategic cruise missiles, which provided bombers the ability to attack targets from afar, bypassing dangerous air defense zones. This increased their combat value, although the problem of overcoming air defenses remained relevant. That is why both the USSR and the USA simultaneously developed fundamentally new models of strategic bombers. The Tu-160 and the B-1B, both with variable sweep wings. But even despite their innovativeness, the chances of survival for these machines in modern air defense conditions remained limited, and they were mainly used as carriers of cruise missiles. Moreover, the operation and maintenance of these aircraft turned out to be much more expensive than their predecessors, such as the Tu-95 and the B-52. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, the creation of new machines was halted, while the Americans focused on developing stealth technologies, which led to the creation of the most expensive aircraft in history, the B-2 Spirit by Northrop Grumman. One unit of the B-2 cost over $1 billion. The concept of a highly stealthy strategic bomber proved so successful that its successor, the B-21 Raider, continues the development of stealth technologies. A contract to produce 100 of these aircraft was signed with Northrop Grumman in 2015, and the project is valued at $80 billion. The development was completed in 2019, and the assembly of the first units began at Air Force Plant 42 in Palmdale, California. By 2022, 6 aircraft were at various stages of assembly, and the introduction is scheduled for the period from 2025 to 2027. What is known about the B-21 Raider? The new strategic bomber, designed to carry both conventional and nuclear weapons, underwent flight tests in 2024, according to U.S. Air Force spokesperson Ann Stefanik. According to her, the tests were conducted by the 412th Test Wing of the U.S. Air Force, where specialists are responsible for testing. 419th Test Squadron. The creation of these aircraft involved components supplied by more than 400 contractors from 40 U.S. states. The U.S. Air Force intends to purchase at least 100 units of the B-21, at a price of about $750 million each. The number of ordered aircraft could reach 200 units. The manufacturer, Northrop Grumman Corporation, claims that the B-21 belongs to the 6th generation of aircraft technology, thanks to its ability to interact with other aircraft and adapt to new weaponry. In addition, the B-21 uses an advanced protective material that reduces operational costs. In military affairs, strategy and adherence to rules are of utmost importance. But if you get into an accident in America and don't know what to do, need a competent lawyer, or how to get compensation if you don't have insurance. The company DTP America has helped clients receive compensations totaling $21 million. Here, you will definitely get answers to all your questions. Link in the description. Technical specifications. The technical specifications of the new bomber are not officially disclosed, so I had to gather information literally bit by bit. B-21 Raider is an American 4th-generation strategic bomber with a high degree of stealth. The special design of the fuselage disperses radar signals, making it a difficult target for air defense systems. This allows the aircraft to be used both at long ranges and near enemy positions. The technical specifications include a wingspan of 164 feet, length, height 16 feet. The cruising speed is 466 miles per hour, with a maximum speed of 627 miles per hour. The flight altitude can reach 49,212 feet, and the range is 6,835 Mach 2. A feature of the B-21 Raider strategic bomber is its network-centric control system, making it a pioneer among previous generation aircraft. Typically, such a feature is characteristic of sixth-generation machines, highlighting the innovative approach of the developers. Production challenges. Much about the B-21 has been stated with bold claims, but it is worth noting that the US does know how to create formidable high-class weaponry. However, if you delve into the details, many questions arise. First of all, there is no clarity regarding the power plant for the new bomber. Initially, it was planned to equip the aircraft with F-135 engines from Pratt & Whitney, which are already installed on F-35 fighters. However, later attention was redirected to the XA-101. But Congress has suspended the decision on allocating funds for the mass production of this engine model. As for the hypersonic missiles, which are planned to be used as the combat payload for the B-21, the situation does not seem any less complicated. In 2022, the US was able to test AGM-183 AARW missiles, which are officially classified as hypersonic, but in practice, their speed consistently does not exceed 5 Machs in tests. Additionally, they require further refinement, which may cause additional difficulties. And although the tests have already been conducted, developers still have to solve many tasks and complete the full cycle of refinements to launch mass production of the B-21 by 2026 to 2027. A serial challenge. In 2021, the Pentagon announced plans to purchase 149 units of the B-21, which is almost equivalent to the entire current fleet of strategic aviation in the US. Currently, the US Air Force has 20 B-2 stealth bombers at its disposal, 60 B-1B variable sweep-wing aircraft, and 70 older B-52H models, which are planned to be upgraded in the coming years by replacing their engines. Considering that the older models will not be decommissioned in the near future, the total number of US strategic aviation, including the new B-21, could exceed 200 aircraft. The emergence of such a number of modern strike units will undoubtedly attract the attention of the US's main military rivals. The appearance of the B-21 Raider will be as revolutionary as the debut of the B-2 stealth bomber in 1989, and in 1989 year, this event will undoubtedly become an important milestone in the evolution of strategic aviation and will open a new chapter in the development of combat aviation. The first procurement. The United States Department of Defense announced the signing of a contract with Northrop Grumman Corporation for the production of the first batch of sixth-generation strategic bombers, B-21 Raider. The Pentagon is confident that accelerated production and deployment of new systems will allow the U.S. to ensure reliable deterrence of its adversaries. B-21 Raider is a strategic bomber capable of carrying both conventional and nuclear weapons. According to the Pentagon, it possesses unmatched stealth and enhanced survivability. This makes it virtually invulnerable to the most advanced air defense systems. The signing of the contract between the Pentagon and Northrop Grumman was first reported by Bloomberg and the Portal Breaking Defense. The U.S. Deputy Secretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, William LaPlante, noted, based on the results of ground and flight tests, as well as the thoroughly developed plans of the Northrop Grumman team, I have authorized the start of production for the first batch of B-21s. He emphasized that one of the key features of the program is the ability to quickly transition from design to mass production. This should ensure reliable deterrence of adversaries. Without active production and deployment of new weapons, their potential will not matter, added LaPlante. The Pentagon did not disclose information about the contract amount, production volumes, or delivery schedule. Northrop Grumman did the same. The corporations only confirmed that the B-21 successfully passed basic flight tests and entered serial production. As the world's first sixth-generation aircraft, the B-21 lays the foundation for the future air power of the United States, ushering in a new era of capabilities and flexibility. Thanks to the integration of advanced data, sensors, and weapons, as well as rapid upgrades to stay ahead of emerging threats, company representatives stated. American media publications have reported on 2 flights of the B-21 strategic bomber Raider On November 10, 2023, it was transferred from the factory airfield in Palmdale to Edwards Air Force Base in California, where it underwent a test flight on January 17, 2024. Before this, the US introduced a new bomber during the Cold War period, when the B-2 Spirit was unveiled in 1988. Spirit in 1988. Year. Northrop Grumman has already produced 6 units of the B-21. The US Air Force plans to purchase at least 100 of these bombers and put them into service in the mid-2020s. As I mentioned earlier, the B-21 Raider is replacing another strategic bomber, the B-2 Spirit, so I decided to share a bit about it. The predecessor B-2 Spirit. The Spirit is an American heavy strategic bomber, which was also developed by Northrop Grumman. It became the first modern serial heavy aircraft designed in the flying wing configuration. The main purpose of the B-2 is to penetrate dense air defense systems and deliver both conventional and nuclear warheads. The history of the B-2's creation began in the 1970s after the cancellation of the B-1A bomber production program. In response to this cancellation, the US Air Force formulated a technical specification for the development of a stealth strategic bomber. Major American aerospace companies, including Lockheed, Northrop, Rockwell, and McDonnell Douglas, responded to this specification. As a result of the preliminary selection, the projects from Lockheed and Northrop were chosen for further development, both designed as flying wing configurations. However, the Lockheed project did not fully meet all the Air Force's requirements and was not the most suitable option as a manufacturer, since the company was already engaged in producing the F-117 stealth attack aircraft. Due to this, preference was given to Northrop, which already had experience in developing aircraft with such a configuration. In 1981, a contract was signed for the creation of a stealth bomber, which was given the code name ATB. The first flights of the B-2 Spirit took place in 1989. And production was completed in 1999. Advanced stealth technologies were used in the design of the B-2. The aircraft was designed in a flying wing configuration. Its nozzles had a flat shape, which facilitated the rapid cooling of the hot air. The airframe was covered with a special radar-absorbing coating made from composite materials based on carbon and graphite. The construction of the bomber. B-2 Spirit. It is a 4-engine subsonic strategic bomber, where the fuselage in the traditional sense is replaced by the wing's center section. In the front part of the center section is a 2-seat crew cabin, and behind it is the avionics compartment. The aircraft was distinguished by a high level of automation, which is explained by the fact that the crew consisted of only 2 people. For their comfort, a galley, a bunk, and a toilet were provided. The B-2's engines are located deep within the aircraft's body, and air is supplied to each pair through S-shaped ducts. Part of the air is used not for powering the engines, but for cooling the exhaust gases, which allows for a significant reduction in the aircraft's thermal signature. The fuel tanks are located in the wings and the center section, which helps improve balance and increase flight range. The operation of the B-2, in turn, was conceived as a complete replacement, which, as is known, are still in service with the US under the program. The US Air Force planned to purchase more than 130 of these bombers, but due to a number of factors, this did not happen. The enormous cost of the project, which, according to various sources, amounted to about $20 billion. Only the research and design work, as well as the collapse of the main adversary of the US, the USSR, played a role in the reduction of the program. In addition, there was an incident that could have completely halted the B-2 program. After the reunification of Germany, the US acquired a Soviet MiG-29, and during one of the test flights, it was determined that the radar of the Soviet fighter could detect the B-2 even against the background of the Earth. Information that a Soviet plane could easily be shot down. The information that the Soviet aircraft could easily shoot down the B-2 quickly became known in the press and caused a serious scandal. As of 2024, the US Air Force still had 19 B-2 Spirit bombers. The total cost of the program amounted to over $44 billion at 2004 prices. Initially, the cost of one aircraft was about $530 million, but later it exceeded $1 billion per unit. From 1987 to 2000, 21 aircraft were built, including a prototype. The B-2 aircraft were stationed at Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, where the 509th Bomb Wing was located. These are the very aircraft that dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki in 1945. To service these expensive aircraft, a specialized infrastructure was built at the base, including hangars with air conditioning systems and fire suppression equipment. During the construction of the hangars, radio-absorbing and composite materials were used to protect the aircraft from environmental exposure, as well as ultraviolet rays, which negatively affect the airframe's coating. Accidents and disasters. According to official U.S. data, by 2010, there had been only one incident involving the loss of a B-2 bomber in a non-combat situation. On February 23, 2008, a B-2 aircraft with serial number 890,127, known as Spirit of Kansas, crashed near the island of Guam at the Anderson U.S. military base. This was the first crash of this type of aircraft. Both pilots managed to eject. After the accident, all B-2 flights were suspended. However, by the end of April 2008, aircraft of this type resumed flying. The investigation commission determined that the cause of the crash was a violation by ground personnel, who failed to turn on the pitot tube heater, leading to the accumulation of condensation. This caused a distortion in the speed readings, resulting in the aircraft's control system prematurely commanding takeoff. The crew's actions were deemed correct, and no deviations in the onboard systems were found. Simulation of the situation on a simulator showed that saving the aircraft was impossible. In February 2010, another B-2 with serial number 880332, named Spirit of Washington, was seriously damaged due to a fire in the engine compartment during engine startup at the same Anderson base. The damaged aircraft was under repair for almost 4 years and only took to the skies again on December 16, 2013. The cost of the restoration work amounted to over $105 million. The B-2 Spirit and its successor B-21 play a key role in the strategic security of the United States, significantly strengthening their position in nuclear deterrence and global power projection. With the application of the latest technologies and tactical capabilities, the B-21 Raider bomber ushers in a new era for the development of American air forces, providing a solid foundation for future operations and enhancing the country's ability to quickly respond to global security challenges. That's all for today. Goodbye, everyone. What happened to the desert in the USA when thousands of beavers were released there? It's incredible. In the 1940s, the American authorities in the state of Idaho relocated local rodents to remote regions with the aim of improving the landscape. 70 years later, NASA satellite data showed that the areas inhabited by beavers became greener, lusher, and more resistant to fires and droughts. How beavers completely transformed the desert in the USA, I'll tell you in this video. Let's go! An original solution to the problem: droughts in Idaho. In the 1940s in the state of Idaho, where many areas were cut off from settlements due to the lack of roads, local authorities came up with a creative solution. They used World War II-era parachutes to literally drop beavers into their new homes. Initially, hunters and fishermen planned to place the beavers in woven willow. The animals would be able to gnaw their way out. Exit after landing. However, the beavers turned out to be too impatient and would destroy the cages long before landing. Then specialists from Idaho, Fish and Game, developed a special box that would automatically open upon contact with the ground. The design was tested on one energetic beaver named Geronimo. After a series of field tests, scientists were convinced that the system worked. Thus began the unusual project of relocating beavers. It continued until 1948. The descendants of these animals now inhabit parts of the largest protected roadless forest area, spanning across 48 states of the USA. In the Bow Creek area of Idaho, the positive impact of beavers on nature is evident from above. These industrious creatures built dams and transformed the surrounding landscape. Comparing sections of the river where beavers settled with adjacent areas without them, the differences become apparent. The beaver habitats appear significantly greener and richer in vegetation. In 2018, severe wildfires engulfed more than 60,000 acres of land in the Bow Creek area. However, NASA satellite images taken after the fire showed that the wet and densely vegetated areas near the beaver dams remained virtually untouched by the fire. Modern NASA data confirms that the experiment using parachuting beavers to restore ecosystems was successful, saving the ecosystem in Nevada. In the late 1980s, biologists raised the alarm about the drying Dixie Creek in the state of Nevada. Long-term dry and hot weather, coupled with people's careless attitude towards the environment, this led to a deterioration of the ecological situation. Experts recommended that farmers change their livestock grazing practices by restricting animal access to the stream banks. This allowed the riparian vegetation to begin recovering. These measures attracted beavers, which feed on tree bark, leaves, shoots, and roots of aquatic plants. Beavers have become true protectors of nature. By building dams on bodies of water, beavers protect themselves from predators and create food reserves. The dams slow down the water flow, creating favorable conditions for the growth of riparian grasses, flowers, and shrubs. Thanks to these structures, the population of fish, other aquatic animals, and plants in the Dixie Creek stream has increased. Soon the stream fully recovered, turning into a green oasis. Animals and birds began to return here to drink. For a region with a desert climate, this became a true miracle. Beavers are saving the ecosystem in California. For many years, beavers were perceived as undesirable creatures because they damaged trees and shrubs, and created dams that caused flooding in populated areas and on farmlands. However, in recent years, attitudes towards them are changing, and beavers are increasingly being seen as nature's helpers in the face of climate change. Recently, California has changed its stance and started supporting animals that create fertile ecosystems, attracting various species. Back in urban areas, replenishing groundwater supplies and protecting against wildfires. According to the new policy introduced in June 2023, landowners and organizations affected by beaver activity are encouraged to seek alternative ways to address issues, such as installing flow control devices or protecting trees with special wrapping before requesting permission to destroy the animals. In addition, the state is implementing pilot projects to relocate beavers to areas where they can provide the most benefit. The main goal is to preserve more beavers and their beneficial behavioral traits without harming the environment. In the West, there has been a significant shift in the perception of beavers. They are now seen not only as pests but also as environmentally beneficial creatures. Noted Valerie Cook, who leads the beaver population restoration program at the California Department of Fish and Wildlife. This program was funded by Governor Gavin Newsom's administration in 2022. Ecosystem restoration requires special attention. But if you got distracted and ended up in an accident in America and don't know what to do next, where to seek help, where to find a competent lawyer, how to get compensation if you don't have insurance, the company Accident America has helped obtain $21 million in compensation for its clients. Here, they will definitely answer all your questions. Link in the description. A thorough approach to the beaver population in California. Kate Lundquist, director of the Water Resources Institute at the Occidental Arts and Ecology Center, expressed confidence that changes in California's policy will lead to a reduction in the number of beavers being destroyed and an expansion of wetland areas. She emphasized that the droughts of recent years and devastating wildfires have affected the perception of the role of beavers in the state. The exact number of beavers living in California is unknown, but landowners request hundreds of permits annually to destroy them. According to the State Department of Fish and Wildlife, the beaver population in North America once numbered between 100 to 200 million individuals, but eventually their numbers decreased to 10 to 15 million. Beavers live in family groups and quickly build dams on streams, creating ponds. These bodies of water help accumulate groundwater and can serve as a barrier to the spread of wildfires, a key issue for California, which suffers from frequent fires. Explains Emily Fairfax, a professor of ecology and environmental management at California State University, Channel Islands. Although beavers are not protected by law, they create conditions that are critically important for the existence of other species, such as the endangered coho salmon. Salmon fry find refuge and develop in beaver ponds, which increases their chances of survival. Notes Tom Wheeler, executive director of the Environmental Protection Information Center, who has long advocated for non-lethal population control of beavers. However, representatives of the California Farm Bureau have not yet formed a clear position on this issue. Solving the problem. Beavers in Alaska. In recent years, beavers have increased their migration to Alaska, where the thawing permafrost has created favorable conditions for them. However, their activity has started to accelerate this process. Beavers are restoring lakes by filling them with warm water. This conclusion was reached by climatologists. Ingmar Nitze, from the Alfred Wegener Institute, said in 20 years, the area of lakes and small bodies of water in Alaska has increased by 8.8%. It turned out that beavers choose the basins of dried ancient lakes and build dams there. The number of dams in the region increased from 94 to 409 over 10 years. Nitze clarified that beavers helped restore 56 bodies of water. Filled with warm water, these lakes accelerate the melting of permafrost beneath them. Similar processes are observed in Canada and other northern regions. However, the melting of permafrost can lead to the release of significant amounts of methane and carbon dioxide. It can also trigger massive natural fires. The Beaver Relocation Program in Washington. Biologists turn to nature's best engineers, beavers, as a cost-effective and efficient way to restore the ecosystems of local water bodies. In the states of Washington, Oregon, and Utah, where water often becomes a point of competition between people, fish, and agriculture, typically landowners capture or destroy beavers that interfere with the operation of irrigation channels. Biologists decided to relocate such animals closer to the headwaters of the Yakima River, harnessing their natural talent to build lodges and dams in a constructive manner. Over 4 years, the group has already relocated 126 beavers. About half of them stay in the new location and start building dams, while the rest either fall prey to predators or return to their familiar habitats. There are cases where beavers have traveled up to 40 miles to reunite with their partner. The dams, ponds, and other structures created by beavers complicate the ecosystem, slowing the movement of water and sediment downstream. Salmon and other fish take advantage of these water pockets, where they can rest and feed, and hide from predators. The Beaver Relocation Project aims to achieve 2 goals at once: reducing the killing of these semi-aquatic animals from 1,000 to 2,000 individuals per year just in Washington, and improving conditions for the salmon population. Restoration of the beaver population in the nature reserve. Dense thickets, including giant poplars, dogwoods, willows, and red cedars, as well as various species of ferns, columbines, and thistle. Wild ginger and dozens of other native plants. This corner of nature in the Woods Creek Reserve, located about 6 miles south of the town of Randall, Washington, is perfect for beavers and also attracts tourists and nature enthusiasts with its mile-long hiking trail. Popular among birdwatchers. The local 4-acre pond was a popular spot for coho salmon fishing among residents and tourists. However, in November 2012, after heavy rains, the beaver dam was destroyed and the pond soon dried up. Then, reed was introduced here, which displaced native plants and reduced the habitat for fish. Biologists, wildlife managers, Jakubowski and White are implementing a unique project to capture and relocate beavers to parts of the National Forest, Gifford Pinchot, where they are needed. In April 2021, White released 2 adult beavers in this area, and there is evidence that at least one of them has settled in. Signs of their activity, such as knot stumps and the use of artificial dams, indicate successful integration. Previously, nuisance beavers were most often euthanized. According to the Washington Department of Fish and Wildlife, about 1,000 beavers are captured annually. Many believe that these animals damage trees and cause flooding. However, Jakubowski and White aim to return them to their natural habitat, where they can integrate harmoniously into the ecosystem. I am interested in restoring wetlands and ponds that existed here for wildlife, beavers, and fish, shares Jakubowski. Since I realized the potential of this project, other enthusiasts have joined in, and now it is turning into a larger-scale restoration initiative. We plan to improve the trail, making it accessible for people with disabilities. Gravel has already been laid, new benches have been installed, and the installation of informational signs is ahead. Jakubowski predicts that the full restoration cycle will take about 5 years. The exact costs have not yet been determined, but it is clear that funding will need to be attracted. However, as it turned out, not everything is going smoothly with the activities of the beavers. The opposite effect in Michigan. In the United States, the Michigan Department of Fisheries and Wildlife has expressed concern about the growing beaver population. The initiative arose after appeals from local conservationists involved in trout fishing, who pointed out the increase in the beaver population in the region, which negatively affects the existence of trout in local water bodies. Experts explain that cold and fast water flows are vital for maintaining the viability of this fish species. However, beavers have started building dams on Michigan's rivers, which can slow down the flow and change the temperature conditions, unfavorable for trout. Specialists associate the increase in the beaver population with a decreased interest in beaver hunting. Additionally, the absence of wolves, natural predators of beavers, in the northern areas of Michigan. In response to this situation, department officials plan to allow fishermen to catch an excess number of beavers to support the trout population. Massachusetts against beavers and their dams. In 2018, the authorities of the city of Framingham in Massachusetts decided to capture and euthanize beavers whose dams threatened to cause flooding. City authorities emphasized that the complex situation was exacerbated by heavy rains, and the beaver dams only worsened the problem. City press representative Kelly McFolds reported that the water level rose by more than 4 feet, leading to the flooding of roads used by school buses, among others. Additionally, water began to seep into the basements and yards of homes. The city budget did not allow for the constant pumping of water or the installation of barriers capable of stopping the beavers from building dams. As a result, the authorities decided to eliminate the beavers. The number of animals killed remains unknown. The Framingham administration explained that Massachusetts state laws prohibit the relocation of captured beavers to other areas, so they had to be destroyed. The decision by the city authorities drew criticism from local residents and animal rights activists. The Society for the Prevention of Cruelty to Animals in Massachusetts stated that this is a too cruel and ineffective approach, as eliminating some beavers does not guarantee that others won't take their place. In their statement, the organization suggested that the authorities use humane, cost-effective, and long-term measures, such as flow devices. According to animal rights activists, the destruction of beavers is the least effective solution in the current situation. Russian scientists on the impact of beavers on the environment. The oldest dam known to scientists was discovered in 2005. It is believed to have been constructed approximately 125,000 years ago. The length of dams built by beavers ranges from 328 to 2,624. 1,624. In construction, the animals use exclusively natural materials: trees, branches, grass, silt, stones, and mud. Olga Gorilovskaya, a biologist from the Russian State Natural Biosphere Reserve, Krasinski, explained why beavers build dams. Beavers construct their lodges above the water level. The entrance to the lodge, to protect it from predators such as foxes, wolves, and lynxes, must remain underwater. Therefore, beavers use dams to raise the water level in rivers and streams. Alexandra Nikoliankova, a Russian biologist, emphasized the significant impact of beavers on the environment. The dams built by beavers significantly alter ecosystems, creating new ponds, changing the direction of currents, and even the riverbeds. Such transformations of the area are often referred to as a beaver landscape. Thus, over several decades, beavers have completely restored the entire ecosystem in the vicinity of the arid American desert. Unexpected events on the railroad in the state of Maine. In the spring of 2023, a major incident occurred in the state of Maine involving the railroad system. 3 locomotives and 6 cars carrying timber derailed, causing a spill of flammable substances and a subsequent fire. The fire spread to the adjacent forest area, and 3 railroad employees were injured and hospitalized. The investigation determined that beaver activity was the cause of the disaster. The animals built a dam, which collapsed under the pressure of the water. The water flow surged through the drainage systems, damaging the railway track. The incident occurred on April 15th, reminding us of how vulnerable infrastructure can be in the face of natural processes. Despite some negative incidents in certain states in the USA, examples from other regions of America show the positive side of beaver activity. Beavers. These cases serve as vivid proof that cooperation with nature can lead to remarkable results. And that's all for today. Goodbye, everyone. Does the giant U.S. Air Force plane, the Strategic Military Transport Aircraft, C-5 Galaxy, shock you? The C-5 Galaxy, being the largest and only strategic transport aircraft of the Air Force, is capable of carrying larger and heavier cargo over longer distances than any other aircraft. Today I will tell you about the largest military transport aircraft in the US, the C-5 Galaxy. Let's go. The background and design of the C-5 Galaxy. In October 1961, Lieutenant Joe Kelly, commander of the Military Air Transport Service, announced that the U.S. Air Force had begun the search for a new heavy transport aircraft capable of carrying cargo weighing up to 100,000 pounds over a distance of 400 to 500 nautical miles without refueling. In September 1965, Lockheed won a contract worth over $2 billion and became the main contractor for this project. And General Electric received $500 million to supply engines for the new aircraft. In June 1967, when development began, it became known that a Lockheed employee named Kitchens won the contest for the best name for the aircraft. He proposed the name Galaxy and received a reward of $500 in U.S. savings bonds. In March 1968, the first C-5 Galaxy, with the serial number 668303, was unveiled to the public at a ceremony attended by President Lyndon Johnson and 100,000 spectators. The C-5 Galaxy is a giant aircraft with a crew of 7 people. Its length is 247 feet 10 inches, height is 65 feet 1 inch, and the wingspan is 222 feet 9 inches. It is equipped with 5 sets of landing gear with 28 wheels and 4 F-138G100 engines manufactured by General Electric, each producing a thrust of 250 pounds. This allows the aircraft to reach a maximum speed of 571 miles per hour, a cruising speed of 539 miles per hour, and a range of 3,233 feet when fully loaded. The C-5 Galaxy can carry 280,001 pounds, which is loaded and unloaded simultaneously through the nose and tail doors. Its ramps are wide enough to load 2 vehicles simultaneously. It can even carry an M60 tank weighing 46,266 pounds, which it is capable of transporting at a maximum speed of 470 knots over a distance of 5,500 nautical miles without refueling. Tests and achievements. In June 1968, Lockheed began an extensive flight testing program during which the C-5 made its first flight from Dobbins Air Force Base in Georgia. The aircraft was piloted by Chief Test Pilot Leo Sullivan, Test Pilot Walter Hensley, Flight Engineer Jerome Jerry Edwards, and Lieutenant Colonel Joseph Schiller, the Chief Test Pilot of the U.S. Air Force. The flight was successful. The C-5 took off at a speed of 123 knots. Climbed to 10,000 feet at a speed of 140 knots, reached a cruising altitude of 11,000 feet, and landed at a speed of 160 knots. On December 17, 1969, the first C-5 was delivered to the Military Airlift Command at Dobbins Air Force Base. However, the aircraft's first combat mission in June 1970 did not go without issues. Upon landing at Charleston Air Force Base, it lost a wheel from the left landing gear, which detached and bounced back, causing damage to the adjacent tire. Nevertheless, the next C-5 flight outside the United States in the same month went significantly better. The aircraft undertook a 10-day journey with stops in Hawaii, Guam, the Philippines, Vietnam, Japan, and Alaska before returning to Charleston. The first European journey, which included Germany, the United Kingdom, and Spain, was also successful. More than 27,600 people visited the C-5, which was recognized as an undeniable success by the representative of the MAC. In August 1970, the C-5 set a new record by completing a non-stop 20-hour flight, which became the longest at that time. In May 1971, the aircraft achieved another significant milestone by landing in Asunción, Paraguay, for the Inter-American Conference of Air Force Chiefs of Staff. This was the first landing of the C-5 in the Southern Hemisphere. In October 1968, the C-5 set a world record for transporting the heaviest cargo by delivering a ship's reduction gear weighing 194,000 pounds to the Brunswick Naval Air Station in Maine, surpassing the previous record of 143,300 miles. 10 years later, in October 1989, the C-5 made its first landing in Antarctica as part of Operation Deep Freeze, delivering supplies for scientists based at McMurdo Sound. In 2009, the upgraded C-5M Super Galaxy unofficially set 41 records in a single flight, including records for horizontal flight altitude, the largest payload carried at an altitude of 6,500 feet, and the fastest climb, delivering 186,370 pounds over 7,500 miles in less than 28 minutes. Problems. Before the C-5 Galaxy first appeared in combat operations in Vietnam, it was at the center of an incident that undermined its reputation. In September 1971, during a standard towing procedure at Altus Air Force Base in Oklahoma, the aircraft's left engine pod failed. Upon further inspection, cracks were found in the engine mounts on several C-5 aircraft, leading to the grounding of the entire series for a month for inspections. By November 1971, 38 out of 47 aircraft had returned to service. Problems persisted in 1974 when a flap weighing 106 pounds fell off one of the C-5 aircraft, which was flying as part of the 105th Airlift Group, into a backyard in Newburgh, New York. At the same time, a door weighing approximately 238 pounds fell off another aircraft, landing just around 2,000 feet from the runway at Dover Air Force Base in Delaware. Additionally, in April 1975, a C-5 aircraft carrying Vietnamese orphans was forced to make an emergency landing after severe decompression caused significant damage to the flight control systems. As a result of the disaster, 76 children and 60 adults were killed. In response to these incidents, in April 1975, Air Force Chief of Staff General David C. Jones approved a comprehensive safety study. Despite the tragic incidents, the review did not reveal any major safety deficiencies in the aircraft. The only recommendation was the production of a modified wing for the C-5, which was approved by the Air Force Systems Command in August 1976. Transporting large cargo through the sky, just like on the road, requires adherence to safety regulations. But if you get into an accident in America and don't know what to do next, where to seek help, where to find a competent lawyer, how to get compensation if you don't have insurance, the company Accident America has helped obtain compensations totaling $21 million for its clients. Here they will definitely answer all your questions. Link in the description. Update. The project for the new wing for C-5 was completed in June 1978. This wing was made from a more durable aluminum alloy that underwent heat treatment to prevent cracking and the recurrence of incidents similar to those in 1974, when parts of the wings were falling off. The modification was expected to increase the aircraft's service life by 30,000 flight hours and slightly increase its fuel capacity from 140 to 332, 500 pounds. The first upgraded C-5 took off in August 1981, marking the beginning of the flight testing program. The test results confirmed the effectiveness of the new wing. From 1982 to 1987, all 77 C-5 aircraft in service with the MAC underwent the very important and necessary crucial wing upgrade. The upgrade included the installation of new central wings, so 2 internal and external boxes, increasing each aircraft's weight by 17,737 pounds. Since December 1978, as part of the modernization, the capacity was also increased by 75 passengers, and a 3-interval navigation system was installed, costing $47.3 million. Since June 1983, all aircraft received the European 1 camouflage paint, which helped reduce corrosion. In December 1982, Lockheed received a contract worth approximately $609.1 million to enhance and upgrade 50 C-5 aircraft, which were renamed to C-5B. All these aircraft were equipped with new engines and modern avionics. In January 1989, General Dwayne Cassidy made the first flight on the C-5B from Altus Air Force Base in Oklahoma. These 50 aircraft increased the payload capacity by 60% and increased the daily payload by 8 million ton-miles. In 1999, a study showed that the C-5 airframe was robust enough to serve until 2040. This became the starting point for a new modernization program, which included the installation of new engines, as well as global air traffic management systems, collision warning systems, and improved flight control systems. In 2001, Lockheed Martin received a contract worth $1.1 billion to carry out these upgrades. In 2018, the last of the 52 C-5 aircraft of the U.S. Air Force was modified into the C-5 Super Galaxy. In the future, these aircraft are planned to be equipped with an advanced weather radar, new computing systems, and improved communication and air traffic management systems. Humanitarian operations. The C-5 Galaxy aircraft have had a significant impact on humanitarian missions worldwide, playing a crucial role in saving lives and providing essential aid in disaster situations. Thanks to their ability to transport massive loads over long distances, they have become indispensable in the aftermath of natural disasters and humanitarian crises. In 1975, the C-5 Galaxy transported over 1 million pounds of humanitarian aid to Tehran, including 250,000 sets of winter clothing and 10,000 thermal food containers at the request of Iran. In 1985, after a devastating earthquake in Chile, the C-5 fleet transported 132,000 pounds of plastic sheeting needed for constructing temporary shelters. Additionally, 3 Boeing Vertol 107 helicopters were delivered to provide assistance in Sudan. In 1986, the C-5, for the first time, delivered humanitarian aid to Afghanistan, providing 63 tons of aid to refugees in Peshawar who were fleeing from Soviet forces that invaded the country in 1979. In 1987, during the cleanup of the largest oil spill in Alaska, 17 C-5 aircraft transported necessary equipment, including oil skimmers and helicopters. During the same period, the C-5 also delivered medical equipment and supplies to several African countries as part of Operation Africa II. In 1991, in response to the devastating flood in Shanghai that claimed over 1,400 lives, the C-5 transported 75 tons of blankets to China as part of international humanitarian aid. In 1992, as part of Operation Hope, following the dissolution of the Soviet Union, the C-5 delivered 5 million pounds of humanitarian cargo to 11 newly independent republics formed after the breakup of the USSR. In 1996, following a devastating earthquake in Turkey, the C-5 transported rescue dogs, equipment, and vehicles to assist in relief efforts and search and rescue operations. In the year 2000, after the crash of an Alaskan Airlines plane off the coast of California, the C-5 utilized advanced technologies, including side-scan radar and remotely operated underwater vehicles to search for debris. These operations highlight the invaluable role of the C-5 Galaxy aircraft in global humanitarian missions, ensuring the delivery of vital aid in the most difficult and dangerous situations. Military operations. The C-5 Galaxy aircraft has been successfully deployed in theaters of military operations across 4 continents. In May 1972, the C-5 entered combat for the first time in Vietnam, when it delivered 6 heavy M48 tanks with a total weight of 108,000 pounds from the Yokota Air Base in Japan to the Da Nang base in Vietnam. The tanks were swiftly unloaded in just 7 minutes and immediately sent to the combat zone. These aircraft continued to perform similar missions until the end of the war, in April 1975. In October 1973, a C-5 aircraft carrying a cargo weighing 185 or 200 pounds arrived at Lod International Airport in Israel to participate in Operation Nickel Grass. The goal of this operation was to provide support to Israel during the conflict with Egypt and Syria during the Yom Kippur War. In total, the C-5 completed 146 flights, delivering over 24 million pounds of various cargo. In 1978, the C-5 crew assisted the government of Zaire by delivering 130,000 pounds of humanitarian aid, which helped the country's authorities suppress a rebellion in the city of Kolwezi. In April 1983, the C-5 also played an important role in supporting the government of Thailand by indeed delivering artillery guns and ammunition to Bangkok to repel the Vietnamese invasion on the country's northern border. In 1989, during the American invasion of Panama, C-5 transport aircraft made a significant contribution to the operation by delivering 58% of all cargo and 23% of the 53,051 passengers over the 3 months of the conflict. In March 1991, by the end of the Gulf War, C-5 aircraft were actively used for the deployment of military forces and supplies. They transported 84,385 the personnel and 445 million pounds of various cargo. C-5 aircraft also participated in Operation Restore Hope in Somalia in 1993. As part of this mission, they airlifted 621 Nigerian soldiers and nearly 100,000 pounds of equipment. Additionally, C-5 aircraft were involved in transporting British and Dutch soldiers during a peacekeeping operation in Split, Croatia in 1995. The missions were aimed at supporting stability in the region affected by the Bosnian War. Since the beginning of the War on Terror in 2001, C-5 aircraft have continued to play an important role in combat operations in Afghanistan and Iraq. During operations Enduring Freedom and Iraqi Freedom, these aircraft provided the delivery of 48% of all necessary cargo to combat zones. Transport services. The C-5 Galaxy transported the heaviest and most valuable cargo, as well as the world's most important personnel. In June 1977, this giant aircraft delivered a superconducting electromagnet weighing over 88,000 pounds from Chicago to Moscow as part of a joint American-Soviet project on energy technology research. The crew received the Mackay Trophy for the successful completion of this mission. During the same period, the C-5 successfully delivered 4 F-5F fighters with a total weight of approximately 88,200 pounds to the South Korean Air Base Daegu 8 T-38 training aircraft for the Turkish Air Force in February 1980 and 8 F-5 fighters to the Jordanian Air Base Prince Hassan in September 1981. In September 1987, the C-5 was entrusted with the important mission of delivering the entourage and vehicles of Pope John Paul II during his visit to the USA. Among them was the famous armored vehicle, the Pope Mobile. During the tour, the plane carried 75 passengers and 108,000 pounds of luggage. In November 1978, the PO C-5 also participated in the delivery computerized tomography scanner from California to Algeria at the request of and in 1979, it provided the Cambodian government with cranes and trucks necessary for the construction of the new capital. In 1992, the C-5 Galaxy played a key role in transporting 2 Soviet Topaz nuclear reactors, each worth $13 million, from St. Petersburg to Travis Air Force Base in California. It was a complex operation requiring high precision and professionalism. In 1994, the C-5 aircraft made another unusual, delivered the Vickers Vimy bomber to the United Kingdom, which was the largest aircraft in the world in 1919. This historic moment became a symbol of cooperation between countries and the preservation of cultural heritage. During the visit of the American president to China in 1998, 33 Tossi C-5 aircraft facilitated the flights of Bill Clinton and his entourage. The C-5 Galaxy was also used at sporting events, such as the 2000 National Football League Super Bowl. At that time, the C-5 served as a venue for a party with celebrities and other notable individuals. Finally, in the summer of 2021, after the Taliban took power in Afghanistan, the C-5 Galaxy was used during the evacuation from Kabul. This demonstrates that even in complex and dangerous situations, the C-5 remains a reliable and effective tool for accomplishing tasks. Modernization and the future of the C-5. Lockheed Martin began developing the latest modification of the C-5 aircraft, known as the C-5M Super Galaxy, back in 2004. The first prototype took to the skies in 2006. Like previous models, the new aircraft is designed for strategic cargo transport between distant theaters of military operations. The main focus is on intercontinental flights. The aircraft is capable of landing and parachuting troops, military equipment and cargo, as well as evacuating casualties and the wounded. According to the manufacturer's information, the C-5M Super Galaxy can cover distances of 5,250 nautical miles, with a payload of approximately 54 tons. Lockheed Martin claims that after modernization, the aircraft's reliability increased by 90% and its payload capacity by 20%. As part of the modernization program, over 70 improvements and changes were implemented. The increase in maximum payload capacity was made possible by reinforcing the fuselage structure and updating the power units. The old TF-39GE-1C engines were replaced with more modern and efficient CF680C2 engines produced by General Electric. According to the company, the new engines provide a 22% increase in thrust and a 58% increase in climb rate. Meanwhile, fuel consumption has decreased by 10% compared to previous models. The C-5M Super Galaxy is impressive with its dimensions. The aircraft is 248 feet long, 65 feet high, and has a wingspan of 223 feet. The maximum payload capacity reaches 285,000 pounds. In addition to military cargo, the aircraft can transport humanitarian aid. It can accommodate 3,934 bushels of wheat, which is equivalent to approximately 236,000 pounds. The aircraft's landing gear is tricycle type, with a 4-wheel nose gear and 4 main bogies, 2 on each side, each with 6 wheels. The landing gear retracts into special compartments in the fuselage. The landing gear struts fold in a special way. The front ones fold backward in the direction of the airflow, and the main struts rotate 90 degrees. Overall, the landing gear includes 28 wheels, each weighing 4,214 pounds. The C-5M Super Galaxy military transport aircraft from the 22nd Airlift Wing of the U.S. Air Force has set several records in world aviation. In its 45th record flight, it took off from Travis Air Force Base in California with a load of 264,500 pounds and reached a cruising altitude of 29,500 feet. The Lockheed C-5 Galaxy remains an outstanding achievement in the field of U.S. military transport aviation. Since its debut in 1968 and to this day, this aircraft continues to play a key role in providing strategic mobility for the U.S. Armed Forces. That's all for today. Goodbye, everyone. A guy caught a UFO on video in Ohio. What happened next will shock you. There has never been such a large and clear object before. Alien ships have been visiting our planet more and more frequently. Today, I've prepared a compilation of the most thrilling moments when UFOs were spotted in the United States. Let's go. In the state of Ohio, a high-speed UFO was filmed hovering over the highway. On the night of June 21, 2023, at around 10:30 p.m., residents of the city of Middletown, located in Ohio, USA, witnessed an unusual phenomenon. A mysterious flying object appeared over the city, which soon rapidly disappeared from the scene. In the video recorded by one of the eyewitnesses, the object appears similar to a large drone equipped with multiple rotors. However, according to the witnesses, it was spinning at an incredible speed and emitted a bright greenish glow. The author of the video, Bryce Garrick, claims that he managed to capture the object for only a few moments. After briefly hovering in the air, the craft suddenly accelerated to an incredible speed and disappeared from sight. Other witnesses to the incident, including drivers on the busy highway, also shared their impressions. One of them, Caden Little, noted that although the incident was brief, it left a strong impression. "I've seen plenty of drones before, but this object was different from any type I know," he shared. Brian Simpson, president of the Cincinnati Astronomical Society, expressed doubt about the authenticity of the event. He suggested that it might be some kind of hoax, given the small number of witnesses. In Simpson's opinion, confirming the reality of the incident would require significantly more reports from independent sources. There are now plenty of software tools that allow you to create such video effects, including various apps, the expert added. Meanwhile, representatives of the Butler County Sheriff's Office told reporters that they had not received any reports about the appearance of an unidentified object. Air traffic controllers also stated that they have no explanation for what happened. UFO in the sky over Florida. Recently, a strange triangular-shaped object, comparable in size to the moon, was spotted in the sky over Miami, Florida. This object emitted a pink glow and gradually moved away while attempts were made to capture it on camera, and then it completely disappeared from sight. The video of this object was filmed by local resident Travis Bell, who claims that the phenomenon he observed resembled an extraterrestrial craft. The well-known researcher of anomalous phenomena, Scott C. Waring, supported the suggestion of a possible connection between the object and extraterrestrial activity. On his website, he posted photographs comparing the pink figure to the classic shape of a flying disc. For Waring, such claims are nothing new. He has repeatedly expressed the opinion that Florida is frequently visited by aliens. Together with his like-minded colleagues, he is convinced that there is a secret base operating on the coast of the Sunshine State, which UFOs regularly visit. According to Waring, this base is located 5 miles from the shoreline and 3 miles underwater. Nevertheless, no concrete evidence for this has been provided so far. An airline passenger filmed a UFO in the sky over the state of Ohio. A YouTube user shared a video in which, he claims, an unidentified flying object can be seen. The footage was captured directly from inside the airplane as it was flying over the territory of the American state of Ohio. In the video, you can see a mysterious glowing object moving rapidly across the sky. Because the object is far from the plane, it is impossible to definitively determine what exactly the recorded object is. The author of the video is convinced that he witnessed the appearance of a UFO. "I accidentally managed to record the flight of this torpedo-shaped UFO, which, as you can see, has no wings or engines," the user explained in the video description. Some viewers expressed doubt about the author's version, suggesting that what was actually in the sky was a missile, which the passenger mistook for evidence of extraterrestrial life. If you happen to encounter a UFO while flying past it on a plane, be sure to follow safe driving rules. But if you get into an accident in America and don't know what to do next, where to turn for help, how to find a competent lawyer, or how to get compensation if you don't have insurance, the company DTP America has helped its clients receive a total of $21 million in compensation. Here, you will definitely get answers to all your questions. The link is in the description. A swarm of UFOs caught on video near a U.S. Air Force base in Indiana. In October 2024, many residents of Kokomo, Indiana, located just 13 miles south of the Grissom Joint Air Reserve Base, reported seeing mysterious flickering lights that suddenly disappeared in the sky. "What is that?" one of the local residents asked in surprise while recording the event on video. "Looks like a UFO, and honestly, I really don't feel like going to bed tonight." These mysterious objects sparked widespread interest online, where experts tried to unravel the nature of their origin. The US Air Force refrained from making any public statements regarding these UFOs, which appeared as reddish and orange spheres slowly drifting across the sky, as well as a single white sphere performing sharp zigzag maneuvers. Some have suggested that these could have been signal flares dropped from aircraft, possibly military ones. But one of the witnesses provided meteorological radar data showing a huge rectangular UFO with a distinct shockwave outline of vapor and dimensions comparable to half of Disney World. The largest and clearest UFO in the sky over Texas. On June 29, 2015, at around 2:30 in the afternoon, two friends, Salvador and Jose from Brownsville, Texas, near the border with Mexico, used an HD camera to film an unusual phenomenon. Their goal was to find a UFO, since there had been increased activity of such objects in the region during that period. The recording was made when the moon was in its third phase, as noted by the author of the video. He also emphasized that he did not hear any sounds coming from the object, but felt strange vibrations that were invisible to the eye. This is one of the highest quality UFO videos. The size of the object is comparable to a small crossover, approximately 17 to 20 feet in diameter. It was hovering at an altitude of about 300 feet above the observer's head to keep an eye on visitors. However, he had absolutely no idea that he would end up witnessing something inexplicable. 43-year-old Matt Doughty was relaxing in front of the TV with a friend when his phone notified him of movement near the door. Since he wasn't expecting anyone, the man decided to check what was happening outside. What he saw on the recording left him shocked. The camera captured something that appeared to be an unidentified flying object passing over the city. Matt, who works in logistics, didn't immediately believe in the possibility of a visit from an extraterrestrial civilization. He sent the video to his father, who is passionate about aviation, hoping for his professional opinion. His father confirmed that it was definitely not an airplane. Since then, the only possible explanation has remained a UFO. It was really creepy. I thought, wow, it flew right by. I wondered if I had stumbled upon something unknown to other people. My friend Kev claimed, oh my god, that looks like a UFO. 2 weeks later, Matt decided to post the video on social media, hoping to hear what others thought about the three lights that flew across the sky. The video instantly went viral. Despite hundreds of comments, no one was able to offer even a remotely plausible explanation. The UFO mystery in Las Vegas. A Las Vegas police patrol around midnight on April 30th, 2023. According to the American Meteorological Society, flashes of light from this object were also observed in the states of Utah and California. About 39 minutes later, one of the Gomez family members called 911 and reported that two strangers had appeared in their backyard after they saw some object fall from the sky. We saw something falling from this. It landed, we felt a powerful jolt of energy. Then we heard voices all around us. A lot of people, the caller told the emergency operator. Next to our equipment stood a person about 6.5 feet tall, and inside him was another, with big eyes, who was looking at us, the caller continued. They are very tall, about 10 feet, maybe even 13 feet, and they are definitely not human. Absolutely not, he added. The police officer who spoke with the Gomez family described them as trustworthy. However, according to him, the presence of police surveillance cameras adds a new twist to this story, making it even more mysterious. Two UFOs were caught on video in the state of Texas. On June 23, 2020, a resident of the small American town of Mico, located in Texas, was enjoying a magnificent sunset and decided to capture the scene on video. His high-quality camera perfectly conveyed all the beauty of the setting sun, surrounded by a bright halo, and the gradual transition from daylight to nighttime darkness. However, when reviewing the footage later, the author noticed something unexpected: two extremely fast and maneuverable UFOs. The first UFO appeared following a straight line, but then suddenly changed course, making a 90-degree turn. After flying a bit further, it changed direction by 90 degrees again, accelerated sharply, and disappeared from the camera's view. The second UFO appeared from the opposite side and flashed over the city at lightning speed. Mico is a small community located in the northeastern part of Medina County, Texas.